baseball nuts, and a very warm welcome to episode 2 of the Johnny and Josh Show. The 2021 season is off and running, as are we. Great pleasure to have your company. My name's Johnny Gould, joined, of course, by Josh Chetwin, and two what I can only describe as baseball hangers-on, David Lengel, Eric Jansen. We can't get rid of them. Welcome, boys. Lovely to have your company.
For those who watch Gilligan's Island, we're more like the Professor Marion. We're like, and the rest.
No, you know what you guys are like? It's like Star Trek, where they've got like Kirk, Spock, and McCoy going down to the surface with Ensign Johnson and Ensign, Smith, who no one knows, and they're always the ones who die when they go to the surface.
I was gonna go with that.
So we're leaving them behind to look after the ship to die.
They're just inevitably the ones who don't survive, because Spock and McCoy and Shatner are going to survive, right?
James T. I'm thinking James T. I've often thought I look a little bit like James T. Kirk. I've got those sort of same leadership qualities, that chiseled jaw. I think that's a great analogy. I'm loving it.
He just turned 90, by the way.
Is that right?
And he's a good Montreal boy. Good Montreal boy, might I add.
Yep.
90. Wow, James T. Kirk. Well, moving on. It started. It's finally here. The 2021 season is, of course, underway. We're not even a week in, and boy, oh boy, do we have loads to talk about. But first things first, guys, we're going to flip the usual episode structure. And I know Eric's absolutely paranoid about having the structure. He's a man who's defined by the boundaries, but not today. We're going to address the elephant in the room. Not so much an elephant, a herd of elephants. A story that is dominating the headlines. It's taking sport from the back pages of the newspapers to the front page. We are, of course, talking about the 2021 All-Star Game being moved out of Atlanta. I've been trying to get my head around it. JC, not only do you know everything there is to know about baseball, but of course, you're also a lawyer. You're a legal giant. Can you please explain this story for all of us?
Sure. Well, I also worked as an election judge for a couple of elections as well. And what happened is that in the State House, the Georgia legislature decided to pass a law on voting rights. And a lot of the law had to do with early voting and when you could vote and when you could not. And they limited that in sort of a broader sense. They also had drop boxes where you could put your ballots in. That is very useful in a number of states. And they also limited that quite a bit. There were a number of other factors that many experts feel really limit voting rights, particularly in the large urban areas. And of course, Georgia was a location that was very pivotal in the last US election, in that Joe Biden won by a very small margin in a state that had typically gone in the direction of the Republican Party. Now, just to be fair to this voting law and to the governor of Georgia, there are some elements in rural areas of the state where there are more opportunities to vote. They've created just, in terms of early voting, making it a necessary part. So now we fast forward, this has occurred, and a lot of corporations have really recoiled at this, because the general feeling, again, amongst many experts, is that on the balance, this really hurts voting in the state. And Major League Baseball then came out and said, look, we're moving our All-Star Game. And I think this is a really interesting decision by Major League Baseball on a couple of fronts. One, you have to expect, knowing Major League Baseball as we know them, is that they were driven a lot by their corporate partners who probably felt that they were uncomfortable with this. But it's a really gutsy decision, because a lot of baseball's demographic fans are the type of people who actually may embrace some of these changes. And it's a possibility that you're going to have people recoiling. The one thing that I think is the most ridiculous comments that have come out of this in social media and elsewhere is this idea that sports should stay in their lane. And we all know Jackie Robinson, you look at every Olympic game, you look at so many elements, Muhammad Ali. Sports have been a very popular place to be able to assert positions on politics and hopefully change the cultural landscape. So I think that's bunk, whether you agree with it or don't agree with it. This is not something new. Colin Kaepernick obviously was another issue. Whether it's going to hurt baseball, have an impact, whether it's going to change anything in terms of Georgia, that still remains to be seen.
David, there is no question the Players Alliance, which of course consists of more than 100 current and former players who are united in an effort to empower black communities, they've come out in support of MLB's decision. Joe Biden, the White House, has come out in support of this decision. Not surprising, certain Republican elements, Texas Governor Greg Abbott has backed out of the Texas Rangers first pitch over MLB's decision, basically said they want nothing to do with MLB in Texas. And obviously, no surprise to hear that Donald Trump is calling for a boycott. So it is very divisive, this issue. What's your take on it in New York?
Well, of course, we're all very sad that poor Cobb County, one of the original homes of white flight, stands to lose about $100 million in potential revenue. And none of this really exists in a vacuum, does it? Because when you think about it, you know, the Braves name is racist and the logo is racist, and they kind of purposely separated themselves from their white fan base and moving them from Atlanta, which is predominantly African American, to Cobb County, which is quite white. And so maybe if all these other things didn't happen over the past X amount of years, MLB might have been able to look at some of their sponsors and say, look, maybe, you know, we're going to keep it there, and we're going to work to help in this cause and help explore the message during the All-Star game. But they couldn't. I think it hurt the case to keep it there because of the situation in Atlanta. And when they put out a press release, there's the tomahawk, there's the racist name. And, you know, so I think it's a little bit bigger than what's going on right now.
I'm interested in your view. I mean, that's obviously your opinion that it's a racist name. The fact that, unlike the Cleveland Indians, it hasn't, they haven't demanded a change, which would suggest that perhaps not everybody agrees with that point of view. I'm interested in your perspective on this, Josh, particularly given the Braves' reaction themselves. They basically said they were deeply disappointed, and this is the quote I want to offer you. This was neither our decision nor our recommendation. We're saddened that fans will not be able to see this event in our city. The Braves organization will continue to stress the importance of equal voting opportunities, and we had hoped our city could use this event as a platform to enhance the discussion. Now, I know one fellow Braves fan of mine, he felt that that statement was poor. He felt it was a missed opportunity. He felt that actually it's backfired on them. What's your perspective on it?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And first off, it's a little misnomer to David's point that they're not an Atlanta team anymore. They're a suburban team. They've gone out with, you know, everyone else and moved away from the center of the city rather than trying to be an anchor within the city, which I think is a very important element. Look, I do think Major League Baseball is probably driven, and I think this is a good sign for America, that corporations are starting to move in the direction of the importance of you know, voting, the sort of the ethical piece. And again, it's a little more complicated. I think it's very easy for us to say, this is bad, this is good. We try and be really reductive with that. And I think that there were some small elements that were good. I think overall this is very bad for voting rights. My big question is what difference is it going to make? I'd like to believe that it's going to make a difference, that people look at the fact that major institutions are saying this is wrong and that it will change opinions. The sad truth, though, is that we live in such a divided times that I think that these sort of things divide more. And I don't think that means they shouldn't have done it, but I'm saying that it's a reflection of a very difficult moment in American history, that despite the fact that one of the great institutions, America's national pastime, is taking a stand in a way that the sport normally, a very conservative sport, does not, is not going to have an impact is very sad. I think one of the interesting knock-on effects here is that you're going to have conservatives in the U.S. Congress trying to push to take away Major League Baseball's antitrust exemption as sort of a stick in return for this. And if that happens, that will have a huge impact on Major League Baseball. Their antitrust exemption has allowed them to basically work as a monopoly, and it would have a huge impact if that does occur.
I'm obviously saddened as a Braves fan. I mean, I'm saddened to see that the game will not be taking place at the home of the Braves. They've obviously also lost the 2021 MLB draft, which was a new addition to the All-Star game festivities. Latest thing I've heard is that it may be happening in Milwaukee, which, given the fact that they were planning to have this presentation to the family of Henry Aaron, Hammer Hank, I like that idea as an alternative, given the fact that he played in Milwaukee with the Milwaukee Braves. Your thoughts on that, boys?
I agree. Yeah. I think it's great. I mean, I think, you know, Hank Aaron is such a monolithic figure in baseball. To take away that attention to him because they've moved out of Atlanta would not be right. And I think Milwaukee certainly is a place that makes a lot of sense.
Couldn't agree more.
Right.
Okay, let's bring the bell down and let's start focusing on baseball.
Exactly. Now we try to pride ourselves and strive to not mix politics and baseball and keep them completely separate. But in this case, we had no choice. So I had to segue from that serious issue to, hey, just plain old fun. Well, let's do that with trivia, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Sure. If that makes you happy. Whatever you need, Eric. We want to
Now,
keep you happy, buddy.
for those of you who have been living under a rock in a cave in Mars with their eyes shut and their ears plugged, the opening day began the other day, and when baseball's underway.
For some, don't brag.
More on that later for if you're a Mets and Nats fan. But what we did see this week so far, and we'll discuss this a bit later, Detroit's Akil Baddoo. What a name! You know,
Love it.
He's the Star Wars. He's a Star Wars character.
Akil Baddoo sounds. Yes, he does sound like.
I think he lived on Tatooine.
I almost drafted him in one of my fantasy teams because I love that name so much. That is phenomenal
and relevant. Okay, so Akil Baddoo of the Detroit Tigers, on his debut, on his first at bat, on the first pitch, hits a home run. How's that for a debut for any youngster, especially if you're a Detroit Tiger? Now, my question to you, gentlemen, is,
Can I just say, Eric? I love that you use the term youngster. That makes you sound like such an oldster.
Which he is.
Which you are, indeed. Yes.
Yeah, what a wonderful young man that Baddoo.
He's a crackerjack.
Now, that whippersnapper of Akil Baddoo, he's not the only one to have had their major league debut, first at bat, first pitch, and hit a home run. Which of these three players also completed the feat? Which of these three active players, might I add, also accomplished the feat of hitting a home run, first at bat, first pitch? Is it A?
I know this.
Starling Marte.
I know this.
Starling Marte? Is it
I'm
B?
not answering.
Is it B, Wilson Contreras? Or is it C, Jason Hayward?
I'm afraid, Eric, because I've done my research,
Ichiro?
which obviously the other two haven't. I know the answer to this, so I'll keep my gob shut because I'm just going to take the point.
I'm so hoping that you've screwed up your research. So
nobody, I assure you,
Johnny has to go last. That means Johnny goes last.
Johnny goes last. Okay, so anyways, more answer later on in the show. Anyways, so that's my question to you. Which of those three active players have hit a home run in their first at bat, first pitch? Was it A, Starling Marte, B, Wilson Contreras, or C, Jason Hayward?
He became the 12th Tiger to hit a home run in his debut. Denny McLain, great pitcher, was one of them. Gates Brown. Because I don't know the answer to your trivia question, so I just figure I'll throw out other random trivia to try and bolster my ego when I feel small.
Well, you know what? I don't care.
Okay, right. Lead off.
Sorry, I forgot to wield the waffle.
Okay, well, it's first
we'll
pitch
know
time.
better.
And Akil's just going to take a swing at this one. It's an upside-down world that we live in. If you're a fan of Stranger Things or Bizarro World, if you're an old fart like us and understand that old-school Superman reference, I don't even understand it, so what hope have you got? COVID update. We'll kick things off. Well, we've already had an outbreak. The Nats have had an outbreak amongst, I think, a couple of players and some of the backroom staff. And, of course, that's meant that their opening series against the Mets has been postponed. Game 1 against the Braves tonight. We're recording on Monday night. That's also been postponed. So there is already the COVID impact that we thought we were going to be moving on from last season. It's still there, unfortunately. And this is the thing that's really fascinating me. Inevitably, the stadium capacity, we're not going to be seeing massive crowds, but we have already started to see the return of some. But guys, they're saying for the opener at the ballpark, the Texas Rangers are going to have 100% attendance. Only in Texas. Madness, isn't it?
Yeah, it strikes me as madness. It's really been interesting to watch these games in the opening weekend. When I was in college, I played in the Kingdom, and you had like a smattering of fans. It feels like a college game in a major league ballpark because it feels like you can't fill it. And so there is an energy there. I don't think it's enough of an energy to really have that kind of impact the players feed off of at this point. But one thing is interesting, and I think this will be really interesting for the Houston Astros this whole season, as long as they have this. when you have a small attendance like that, you can hear individual people sledging, the slagging off. So I think if you're Houston Astros and if teams want to, or fans really want to dig in, they're going to have the opportunity with these small sort of pockets of fans.
Like Altuve, you cheating beep.
Like that.
Yes, which the Oakland A's were.
You mother beep, Altuve.
Well, Dave, it hasn't worked, has it? I mean, we're going to get to that, but it hasn't worked. They could scream and shout and accuse them of all sorts, but my Lord, Houston have given the A's an absolute kicking in that opening series. I mean, that was seriously one-sided. Anyway, let's talk about the Mets and the Nats. I mean, if this was any other sport, then you would have already been given all 3 games that you've missed out on. But no, it's going to be postponed. It's going to be played at a later date. How mad are you for this new season of Met glory?
Instead of getting all 3 games, you get 3rd place before you've even swung a bat, which is where the Mets are right now, tied for Washington, who also, I'll tell you something, Johnny. First game that was postponed, I didn't mind. I was like, you know what? That's okay. You want to know why?
Why?
Because I've waited all year to hear Gary Cohen, Keith Hernandez, and Ron Darling, commentators for the New York Mets on their cable station, SNY, do their thing. By the way, the best announcers in all of baseball. But the Mets were on ESPN on Sunday night. Oh, no, sorry, on Thursday night. So when they canceled, I said, thank God. Now we don't have to deal with A-Rod on opening day. So I was like, this is great. Tomorrow we'll get it back. We'll have our guys for opening day, and it'll be much more special. Then, of course, we lost the rest of the series. Then DeGrom got off his, routine, which, upsetting. But, we'll deal with it because we have an owner who wants to win and is going to who has said we're going to make the playoffs this year.
That's right. That was in the news today. And interesting, you should comment on the commentators, because Boston Red tweeted at Johnny and Josh, who is your favorite baseball commentator and why? You've already answered the question.
Yes, I have. And I don't know anybody who could possibly argue with me on that.
I think sure JC can.
Yeah, I mean, I like Dave O'Brien as one of the best guys. I like Boog Scampy with the Cubs now. Remy's okay. I mean, the one thing you have right, I enjoy him. But honestly, the one thing we can agree on is A-Rod is, and I hate to be mean, he's an abomination as a broadcaster. To me, he is off the rails bad.
And you don't want your opening day with A-Rod, right? You're with me on that? You don't want that.
No,
it's horrendous.
But between his presentation and his content, he's got nothing.
He's going to be mad he didn't get to buy the team. So already he's coming in there and he's biased. He wanted to buy the Mets. He got outbid, and now he's going to be broadcasting our opening day? I don't think so. Thank you, COVID.
Guys, I'm probably just being nostalgic here, but I think back to Rick Sutcliffe and Gary Thorne and John Miller, and just from the days in Channel 5. I love all those guys. I got no favorites. I love them all.
To me, the best broadcasters are the ones where you feel like you're sitting in a pub drinking a pint, right? Like that. Those are the good ones. Yep. The ones who are too aggressive, too emotional, too intense, frenetic,
too homerish.
Yeah. Too homerish, yeah. It gets a bit exhausting.
I got bad news for you. The waffle's just been flown, so Eric's making a statement. So let's get to the third point in the COVID update, and that is Canadian border restrictions update. Toronto's still going to be playing their early season, of course, we know, in Florida. What's the latest from north of the border, big man?
Well, unfortunately, Canada was a role model around this time last year, like doing things right for COVID and protocols and whatever. 1 year later, it's not. I mean, it hasn't worked out well. The vaccine rollout is slow. The NHL did a very good job last year of having their playoff bubbles. Hardly any tested positive players occurred. They finished off the season in Canada in two bubbles. Now
take that, perfect Canada, not so perfect.
Not
now,
so perfect anymore at the moment because latest
so great.
Latest news.
That was a waffle for those listening.
Another waffle.
Yep.
Latest news is Vancouver Canucks are having multiple games postponed, and we don't know when they're going to play again because at the time of recording, we've found there's now 20. That's right, 20 out of the 22 players on the roster that have tested positive. Doesn't mean they have, but they've all tested positive. 20 out of 22 of Vancouver Canucks have tested positive in the NHL. So if NHL in the West Coast of Canada is struggling right now, you could just imagine that the Blue Jays are not quite ready yet to cross a border.
See you in Buffalo, which is what I said last episode.
I know, yeah.
See you in Buffalo.
They're
June
trying.
1st.
They're trying to stay in Dunedin in Florida in their spring training facility until further notice. But once June kicks in, and if there's still problems north of the border, I think they might be in Buffalo. One interesting thing by
fans in Dunedin, it's a minor league park. What's 10% or 20% of like 2,500?
There we go. So the thing is, as well, sorry, my train of thought. What are you saying? Yeah.
He's like one of these guys on the sidewalk when you're just walking along, minding your own business. He starts coming at you and chatting to you. I mean, Dave, I can see your future in my eyes, big guy.
Okay.
Toronto
pitcher, Ryu Hyung Jin. I know I'm going to completely ruin that, but South Korean pitcher for Toronto, Ryu Hyung Jin, signed a 4-year contract in 2019 with the Blue Jays. Has still yet to step on Canadian soil. So
you're kidding me.
He hasn't played in Canada yet. He hasn't played in the city of Toronto yet, but he's been a Blue Jay for 2 years now. So
okay,
there we go. That's your Canadian update on COVID. Moving on.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, guys, time for the news roundup. Okay, guys, we're going to kick off with Justin Turner and Cody Bellinger, who it would appear, JC, if what happened on day one was anything to go by, don't understand the rules of baseball. Tell us about it.
Well, it's not so much that they don't understand, but sometimes you just don't understand what's going on in the game. It's not necessarily the rules. So Cody Bellinger hits a long fly ball to left field, gets to the fence. Tapia, the left fielder, looks as if he's catching it. Turner's on first base. He is breaking, thinking that it's not going to go over the fence. It's going to hit off the wall. So he's getting ready to, break. Ball bounces off the wall. He's going to be able to score from first base. Instead, the ball does get right over the fence, but it looks like Tapia catches it. It bounces out. Turner thinks that the ball's caught. He starts running back as Bellinger's starting his trot. They cross pass. Watch out. Never cross the stream, but they cross the stream. And what that means is that Bellinger is out because he surpassed the runner before him. So even though he hit it over the fence and Turner scored, Bellinger gets an RBI single for it, and that's it. And it was a huge impact in that game. It was such a strange moment. But what I love about baseball is there's a rule for everything, every possible situation.
Guys, we did the show on Channel 5 for 12 years. I don't think we ever saw that, did we? Remind me.
I don't remember ever seeing it. Josh, when was the last time?
I can't exactly explain, but I have seen that before where runners have crossed.
Okay,
in Little League.
Well, if that was impressive, boys, then the Yerminator, as he's now being known, Yerminator Mercedes, driving with...
so original.
Well, that's what they're calling him now, and deservedly so. This kid has come into the Chicago White Sox. He's batting in place of Eloy Jimenez, who of course got injured. I think he's a catcher. He's been a catcher down in the minor leagues. He's DHing, and he starts his very first game 5 for 5 in his first MLB start. And then he goes 3 in his first 3 at-bats in day 2. So he's 8 for 8. I mean, that's phenomenal. Big Dave, that's the sort of player you want at the Mets.
And I missed it. And then last night, I'm looking at the box scores before the Angels play the White Sox. And I didn't, I just missed that. And I look down at the box score and I see 889 next to Mercedes. And I text my friends. I'm like, dude, this guy is hitting 889. Like that is, it is just incredible there's no words for it. Obviously unsustainable, as we know, but a ton of fun to have a storyline like that early on in the season. It's something to help out the La Russa thing a little bit, Dave.
But also, JC, there shouldn't be that big a surprise. He's a career 302 hitter in the minors, and I know he's never batted above AA and AAA before this, but he can swing a bat. The kid's got talent.
Yeah, I mean, this is the beauty of small sample size, right? And it's just great to get off to a good start. My senior year in college. I started off 5 for 7, but I only ended up hitting like 287. It just happens. You'll come back. You regress to the mean. I mean, do you guys know who's leading the major leagues in batting average right now? Who has enough at bats to qualify?
Buster Posey,
Ohtani. No.
Nope.
Evan Longoria.
It is the
Pitcher.
pride of Campbell University, Cedric Mullins of the Baltimore Orioles, who's hitting
That's Cedric Mullins.
692 or something like that. So, you know, I would wager all your money, Goldie, and maybe a couple dollars from Merrick, he will not be the batting champion for the American League. So.
And can I just ask, your career start of 5 for 7, were 4 of those hit by pitch?
No, they were base hits. They're all cheap little bleeders. Or I've told you this before, right? I had so many, you know what a Texas leaguer is? Those are those little pop-ups that just fall behind the second baseman. I had so many of them in my whole career that they changed the name from Texas leaguers to Chet leaguers. They were named after me.
So basically you were lucky, is what you're saying.
Better to be lucky than good, Goldie. You know that more than anyone.
I'm using the waffle a lot right now.
Okay, let's move on to a reference that we've already made, and we've got to talk a bit more. Detroit's Akil Baddoo homers on his first pitch in the majors. I saw it, guys, and there was footage of his mum and dad in the stands going crazy. It was wonderful. That is baseball for me. That's what I love about the game. And what a name as well. You've got to love. Did you see the footage?
You know what I love is the family nature of baseball. I was watching Tanner Houck pitch for the Red Sox in his debut this season. His mom is in the stands with a scorebook keeping score as her son pitches in the major leagues. That connection from family, from, you know, generation to generation, and how you go through the same traditions that you did when the kid was in Little League, and you have the same joy when they get that first major league hit as you got when they were in Little League is one of the beauties of the sport. Beauty of all sport, right?
Dave, I was very lucky to get invited on the Nat Coombs' TalkSport 2 show yesterday, just to talk about the season start and baseball in general. And one stat he gave me, which I wasn't even aware of, they've done some research in the US about average age of attendees, fans in baseball. And right now, the average age is 57. 57. So
why do you think they're making the bases bigger?
Yeah, because you've got to appeal to the kids. You've got to get the youngsters involved.
Kids love big
whatever
bases,
it takes.
man.
Well, you know, you look at the comparison on other sports. You know, cricket's gone down the route of 2020, the IPL in the last 10 years plus, you know, to address the problem. How do you find the balance? How do you find the balance of attracting the young but being honorable and respectful of the culture of the game?
It just takes too long. I mean, I was looking at this the other day. You know what I was trying to figure out, and Josh will appreciate this. Are there more pitches in the game these days? Are there more pitchers in the game these days? I would say yes. There are definitely more pitchers in the game these days. But every time I thought I found the answer, I found some data that didn't, you know, rubber stamp it. And they pitch slower. There's more pitching changes, but I can't quite narrow down why the average time of a game has gone from, like, in say 1985, probably around 2 hours and 40 minutes, to now where we were. I think last year it was 3 hours and 5 minutes, 3 hours and 7 minutes. I mean, there was a game I saw was like 3-2. There were like 12 hits in the game, and it took like nearly 4 hours. I'm like, why does it take 4 hours to play 3-2? I mean, it's crazy. I can't figure out what it is, and I don't know what the answer is. And I think if it was that easy, they would already have it. But I don't know how you turn the clock back and watch these and get back to a faster moving game.
It's a problem that needs addressing, which then brings in the bell. Eric?
But by the way, for those of you who are new to our show in season 2 of the Johnny and Josh Show and Friends, basically, if you're wondering what the heck the waffle reference is all about, me being producer, I hold up a waffle towards the camera to our esteemed panel here.
We ignore it.
If I feel that they're
a defrosted waffle.
If I feel that they're waffling too much, like they are now.
Okay, moving on. Second batter. Okay, what have we learned so far? What are we going to expect? Is it too early to judge the season? I'm going to start with you, Dave. Francisco Lindor, who I'm actually a big fan of, but do you think that the contract, the crazy contract that they've signed, the Mets have signed with him, do you feel that it's a big gamble?
only if the Wilpons are your owner. Now that you've got, it's only a gamble if you don't have the money. You know what's made the Yankees able to compete over the long haul is the ability to pay over mistakes. You know, you make a mistake with a player, like the guy from Boston,
Jacoby Ellsbury.
Jacoby Ellsbury. Thank you very much. I just had a blank there. Jacoby Ellsbury signs, huge deal. Would hamper a medium market franchise for many years, but the Yankees are able to go out and, you know, pay past that mistake. And I think that is kind of what's about to happen in New York with an owner like Steve Cohen. So no, not a gamble.
I mean, that's true to a certain extent, right? With the luxury tax, there are limitations on that. I think a generation ago, you really could do that even more so. So you are right, David. It is a mistake. I mean, all these contracts that are decades long are a mistake. And all you got to do is look at Albert Pujols. Look at the player he was when he signed the start of his, you know, double figure contract.
He never lived up.
In the early years, he was good. I mean, he was solid. But, and I realize that you're looking at different, you know, corner position players tend to age worse than people up the middle, but players up the middle tend to get injured more. So, you know, the odds that a Lindor or a Tatis Jr. is going to give you value throughout that contract are almost nil, but it's their statement contracts, right? To David's point, is that they show a commitment, and what they do is they also bring in other players, right? When you see that a team is willing to spend that money on an individual, you're more likely to go there. You saw that with the Blue Jays. They signed Springer, and Marcus Semien was more interested in going there. So I think there are a lot of ancillary values to that contract that probably wouldn't be calculated into the overall value directly with Lindor.
A change in culture is what it represents. And the fact that a guy like Zach Wheeler will never be allowed to leave a team like the Mets again, now that they have some real money to sign him, and they'll never live that down. He's great.
Certainly was in his first start. Let's just talk about some of the changes to the rules. The changes from last year that they've maintained, those that they haven't. Are you missing the universal DH? Anybody?
I don't. It's going to come back. I don't want to see it. We all know this. We want to keep the separation. AL, you got the DH. NL, pitcher's bat, but we're just.
I mean, that's the rumor, isn't it? That's the rumor. It's only going to be back to the old ways this season, and I love it as well. I love seeing, but particularly when you get a certain individual who's a starting pitcher coming up to bat. But we'll be talking about him a little bit later as well. But what's your thoughts, JC?
Yeah, I mean, historically, I'm so in the same camp as Eric. As I always say, I like changes that involve and create more strategy. But I could see an argument more and more for the DH. And the reason for that is that the quality of pitching has risen so much. If you're looking at the 1960s and you have a pitcher coming up against a guy who threw 85 miles an hour, there was more of a chance that actually a pitcher could do a little something with it. Now you have a situation where the pitcher's coming up against these guys throwing 100 miles an hour, and the disparity between the skill level of the pitcher as a hitter and the pitchers now is so great that it moots the whole purpose of it, that I'm starting to feel like maybe the DH is the right thing. Create a little more offense with it. I'm starting to fence it a little bit more than I have in the past.
That's the best argument I think you can have, is what Josh said right there.
I agree.
I heard a stat yesterday on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball that the average fastball since A-Rod retired, when did A-Rod retire? 15, 16, something like that, has gone up 3 miles an hour.
Yeah.
In just like 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to when
everybody throws gas.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Velocity isn't really the differentiator anymore, right? It's movement and change of speed. And that always was the case, but never more so now in baseball, because everyone does throw mid-90s. It's insane.
In 1989, the average fastball speed in Major League Baseball was 88 miles an hour.
Wow.
And now it's 97.
Well, you're not going to be taken seriously, are you, as a starter, unless you're in a 90
It's
plus.
too bad, because there's a lot of talent that never gets a look. Guys that have great control, great stuff, great, have a great mind for pitching and how to deal with hitters. Those guys get overlooked. They never get a shot. It's too bad.
I mean, that's why I like watching Kyle Hendricks pitch. I like watching Zach Davies pitch. The guys that know how to deal rather than just sort of relying on, the really, heavy fastball.
That's the fun. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, what about some of the other rule changes that they've maintained? For instance, the 7-inning double headers, the starting on second base in extra innings. There's some people are saying that's gone too far. they're suggesting perhaps you could start on first base rather than second base. What's your thoughts on that, JC?
Well, two things. First, the 7-inning doubleheader is very essential, and we're seeing that now with the Mets and the Nats. Those guys are going to have to make up games, and it just doesn't make sense, particularly still in this COVID environment, to have 9-inning doubleheaders where you're just going to really tax a team too much. You're already putting them at a disadvantage by having to play doubleheaders. The runner on second, I'm not a fan of that. I understand why you do it. It does cut down the number of extra inning games. It does speed up those longer games. But strategically, it's interesting because that was a rule in international baseball long before it was a rule in Major League Baseball. And what international baseball would do is you'd bunt, you get the runner to third base, and then you'd have basically 2 outs to score that one run. Major League Baseball takes a totally different approach. I mean, they're swinging and figuring. You put a good runner on second, and it's kind of like the roll of the dice. And that's not strategy. That's just rolling.
So dumb. Why don't they bunt him over?
Trust me, there are some anoraks in a dark room somewhere on various teams that have done the math and have determined what's best for the personnel that you have at the major league level.
Okay, let's get back.
Johnny, I can tell you 7-inning doubleheaders are fine for now. I don't think after COVID you can have 7-inning doubleheaders. I mean, they're a necessity right now. And and as far as starting the inning with a runner on base, it seems a bit of a shame to play a hard 9 innings and then to lose on a gimmick like that. It kind of cheapens like everything that happened before it to me. But again, I do understand why.
But do you know, Dave, there are some managers that are even coming around to thinking that actually they'd look forward to have it for it being maintained post-COVID. There was one manager that was talking about how if you go 13, 14 innings, it completely throws all the preparation you've made for the next day's game and the game after, etc. With regards to rotation, with regards to bullpen.
Baseball.
It's funny you say that because I saw Buck Showalter talking about it, and he wanted to go back to earning it, sort of along the lines of David Lincoln. I know he's not a manager right now, but that's there is
doing some great TV.
Okay, well, the one thing that's putting a smile on everybody's face, and I'm sure we can all agree, unlike the last topic discussion, was the legend that is now producing Shohei Ohtani, who we've all known how good he is, and he's been getting injured, and we've never really seen it. But his first start, in the first inning, he's throwing 101 miles per hour, and then his first at bat, he hits a home run with an exit velocity of 115.2 miles per hour. You don't have to be an Angels fan to have a massive smile on your face and love what this boy is doing.
Yeah, Goldie, I'm not a huge fan of fantasy baseball, but you may have noticed I picked Ohtani. I probably picked him too high, mainly because I just want to have an excuse to root for him every time he goes out there. Yeah. I think health is going to be the big issue here. He got a little banged up in that game, had an ankle injury. He's going to sit out Monday, the first game after that. And, if he could stay healthy, he's one of the most, to me, even more than a Tatis Jr., he could be the most exciting thing in baseball because that 100.6 mile an hour fastball is the fastest fastball thrown by a starting pitcher this season. 115.2 is the highest exit velocity for a home run by any Angel, even including Mike Trout, since StatCast started doing this in 2015. He has the ability to be electric on both sides, and there's no one like that. I mean, he is so special. I just am not sure he's going to stay healthy.
And Dave, you talk about how original this kid is and what an athlete. He became the first starting pitcher to bat second in the game since Jack Dunleavy in 1903, big guy, almost 100 years ago. If that one stat doesn't say how special this kid is, I don't know what does.
There's any number of stats that you could attach to Ohtani that will get you excited. And let's be honest, Ohtani is the most exciting thing to happen to baseball in decades. And that's because there's only been one other player who's ever been able to pitch well and hit home runs. And that's Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
And Ohtani does it in the same game. Ruth didn't really do it in the same game.
Well, so, Ruth was the last pitcher to hit in the top 7 in the order and hit a home run since Ohtani. That was 1933. So he did swing it.
He did it for a while. That's true. First of all, I'm watching all of Sunday Night Baseball, which doesn't happen because of Ohtani, okay, because he's in that game. And I think what's going to get lost in that game, because he hit that home run and he pitched so well for 4 innings, is that he ran into trouble in the 5th. And what was so interesting about this is that the White Sox were down 3-0 to the Angels, And Madden, who's the manager for the Angels, was desperate to get him through Ohtani through 5 so he could get him that win. He thought he deserved it. And he got into trouble. And he committed a throwing error when he tried to throw to first. And then the bases were loaded. And he threw a splitter in the dirt, which made it 3-1. And then he got a strikeout. And the ball and the catcher dropped it. And it went to the backstop. And 2 runs scored, 3-3. But that's not why this is interesting. What's interesting is because there's so many opportunities to take him out of that game. His pitch count was getting up. And all the times we complain, why don't you let him work out of it? Why don't you let him stay in? Well, you know what? Madden gave him a chance to stay in. And that was fascinating in like his first start. And it was just great baseball everywhere in that inning.
Madden is the central figure in the whole Ohtani story because he has flipped the script and how he's going to be using him in that A, he's letting him hit when he pitches. B, he's not going every 6 days. So he's going to be in the 5-man rotation. And C, he's not looking to rest him as much. That's a lot of pressure on him. I don't know whether that's going to work out. It's exciting because it gives you more looks at him, but we'll see.
Let's do it.
Moving on, because also Johnny also asked what to expect with the rest of the season. Now there are some milestones to look out for the next 155 games ish. Miggy Cabrera, who homered on the first day in the snow for the Detroit Tigers. Did you know he's actually 132 hits away from 3,000 and 11 home runs away from 500? And which will mean he will be the first player in history, if he can do it this season, to get 3,000 and 500 in the same season. John Lester is 7 wins shy of 200. By the way, I don't think we'll ever see a 300-game winner in our lifetime. Definitely not in Johnny's lifetime. And
that's what I always hear, and then I see another 300-game winner.
John Lester's
I always hear that.
Ian Anderson's going to be a 300-game winner.
Zach Greinke is 55 innings away from 3,000 innings pitched. Why is that a big deal? Who cares? Loads of pitchers have got 3,000 innings, but only 2 others have done that since 2000. Now in this day and age of pitchers, middle relievers, and everything, a pitcher getting 3,000 innings pitched is a rarity nowadays. So Zach Greinke is 55 innings away, which we'll probably see him get this season. Also, by the way, Zach Greinke is still the only active pitcher left, who has pitched against the Montreal Expos.
That's a good stat. Now that
it is. As you're talking about Albert Pujols as well. Do you think he has enough stamina left? All he needs is 135 more games to reach 3,000 games. And Aroldis Chapman is 24 saves away from 300. There you go. Will this season, clinch him into the Hall of Fame? We shall find out. Moving on.
You just jinxed a lot of them, so there's no hope any of that's going to happen. Now, the third up batter of the day, and this is a show that obviously kicking off the 2021 season is a little different to norm, and so we are going to massively focus on dedicating this whole segment to you guys, because we really do want to stress the importance that you click, you subscribe, you like, and you send in your questions and share all that on the social media stuff that clearly us old fogies are still really struggling to get the grasp with. Now, this literally could make or break our entire podcast season. Not that we're desperate, but we are. Did you know, and you probably don't know this because I've only just found out, we're expanding our reach into YouTube. Yes, YouTube. I thought that was rude, but it isn't. Apparently, that's where everybody goes. YouTube channel.
That's all the kids are doing it.
Is that right? Yep. I don't want to know.
The kids love YouTube.
Well, we don't just watch our archive videos there, packed with special excerpts and extra bonus material. You need to click, subscribe, and like. Now, obviously, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and it's all with the same social handle, @JohnnyandJosh. Notice how we ignore David and Eric. @JohnnyandJosh. Very simple, very catchy. And as always, we want you to get in touch, and you're going to be a part of the show as we were back in the day on Channel 5. Charlie Baldwin, who's been a massive supporter of the show and the podcast since day one. We love you, Charlie. He's asked, would any of you consider the St. Louis Cardinals a dark horse to win the World Series? I went back to Charlie and said, no, I didn't even think they were going to get in the playoffs. What's your thoughts? David, up first. Are the St. Louis Cardinals a dark horse to win the World Series?
They're a pain in the ass. They're always around.
I'm not quite sure that's
They
what
always
Charlie
hang
was
around.
asking.
You know, it's always possible with them. They catch fire. They figure it out. Cardinal way wins again. Hurrah.
Well, JC, Charlie says, I like the
Such a
depth of their
hater.
roster all round. If they get hot in August, which is exactly what Dave just said, they get hot in August and September, which they have an uncanny.
Yeah, my concern, Goldie, is the rotation. Adam Wainwright's first outing was pretty bad. He had a solid season last year. You know, he's really at the end of it. If you lose him, the Carlos Martinez's of the world, that middle of the rotation after Flaherty, there could be some concerns. They're just not going to have the depth of starting pitcher.
Oh, some guy will come up and be amazing out of nowhere that you never heard of. Yeah.
You're so bitter and twisted, Dave.
I know both you and Eric were so.
St. Louis. It's just a.
Okay, well then this question's for either Eric or David, since they are clearly the grumpy old men. This is Fraser Murray. Does hating the starting a runner on second extra innings rule immediately make you an old fogey, Eric?
Yeah, I say start him at first. If we are gonna implement this rule, start him at first. Make it a little harder to reach home plate.
Okay, what do you think, Dave?
I don't mind the starting at first thing. I can go with that. But does it make you an old man? Definitely. Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, Edward,
But it's like
Edward
number
did-
85 on the list of things that make you guys old men. I mean,
You know, if I don't get my oatmeal in the morning, I freak out. That's probably up like top 10.
Prune juice. Now, yes, to reiterate that YouTube channel, because we need more subscribers, don't we, Johnny? Because there's an
We do
incentive
indeed, Eric.
to increase.
We're going to give you an incentive, absolutely, because we're going to drive. For the first time, we're making a real concerted effort to drive you crazy guys towards the YouTube, and obviously click, subscribe, like, do everything that you're meant to do. And what we're going to do is we're going to offer a prize. Okay, so when we reach that magical first 100, and obviously we're anticipating that happening overnight, then we're going to take those first 100 names and we're going to draw one out of the hat and we're going to give them a prize. What's that prize going to be, JC? Something I imagine not your foot, every baseball fan would want.
yes, the second edition of the Baseball in Europe, a country by country history, written by me. It can be signed if you somehow think that would be enjoyable for you.
Personalized
If not,
message?
for
maybe?
sure. Whatever, it'll be like Cameo. Do you guys have Cameo out there? You know what that is?
No,
Yeah.
what's Cameo?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
celebrities.
it's
who say hi.
where Z level celebrities record things and you can pay money for it. Goldie, you should be on that. I would think people would pay like $3 for you.
When I made an inquiry whether I could maybe earn some money, apparently I would have to pay them a couple of quid every time somebody booked me. So yeah, so I gave that one a miss. But
So
yeah.
the-
Well, that's lovely, and you'll write a personalised message. But
If
it's only the
they
second
so
edition.
choose.
So what our listeners are not good enough for the first edition?
If they want the first edition, I did a lot of work in this. I mean, it's 100,000 more words of history.
Oh, so
Updated.
it's like an edited version. It's
Yeah,
like
it's an
updated.
updated version of
it's
it.
the director's cut, is what you're saying.
Well,
updated.
it's 10 years later. I wrote the first book 10 years before, and this one came out a year and a half ago.
And who's the author?
Don't know. I got like a whole pile of them in here, though.
But
So
what's
Okay,
his
what's the
nom?
prize?
Is that his nom
What's
de
that?
plume? To reiterate, yes, we need you on Twitter. We need you on Instagram. We need you on Facebook. But we also need you on YouTube. So click subscribe, click like. Just watching it, alone is not going to cut it for us.
but YouTube's where we're going to give out the gift when we get to how many subscribers, Goldie?
Well, we're going to take the first 100 subscribers and we'll draw a name out of that.
Yep.
So everyone's in with a chance. As long as you're in the first 100, everybody's in with a chance. I'm loving that. That's the sort of competition I love. That's because
right.
I'm that sort of a guy. I'm a giving guy. Okay, hit that bell. It's my favorite time of the show. It's time for 7th inning stretch. Take it away, Aaron.
Well, this is, 7th inning stretch. This is where we do the pop culture bit and also baseball literature. And since somebody else has already plugged their own book, I will be talking about 90. It's written by Mike Robbins. 90 Feet from Fame is the name of the book, written by Mike Robbins. And it's actually a very endearing book. It's a book about people who just missed out on immortality in baseball. Some of them are not household names at all, but should be. And some of them are actually household names, but just missed out on a milestone and or an amazing feat in baseball. And one of them I can share with you is, for example, did you know that Wade Boggs actually hit 400 in 162 games? Wade Boggs batted 400, but unfortunately is from June 1985 to June 1986. So that doesn't count. But you just think if he could have kept those numbers up, Wade Boggs would have hit 400. All listed in this book. But also, let me just share with you that there's a player, Canadian might I add as well, called Arthur Irwin. And he is the accolade of actually being the first fielder to actually take shortstop and wear a fielder's glove back in the turn of the century, back in the turn of the fourth century. And why isn't he a household name, Arthur Irwin? Is it because he's Canadian and people don't care about Canadians as much? Or is it because it was in a different era where late 1800s, cusping into the 1900s, then got onto a ferry and threw himself off and committed suicide? Happy ending. There you go.
Good time.
Oh, wow.
Great.
Story.
Wow.
That's a
So
great
all
story.
listed in
I'm so
Wow.
inspired.
all listed in this book, 90 feet from safety.
Well, I want to read
90 feet from
about
fame.
that. That's
Yeah.
really going to make my
Let
day.
me go drive to the Verrazano Bridge and park.
Yeah,
Yes, there you go.
We've all endured COVID for a year. That's just the book we need at the end.
And
of
then
it.
it's a pick-me-up book. There we go. So 90 feet from fame,
Okay.
Close Calls with Baseball Immortality by Mike Robbins, Eric's Baseball Book of the Week. The TV reference of the week, which I will share with you this week. Well, we're gonna go back to. I've done Seinfeld before, but we're gonna go back to a Seinfeld episode in particular, and it was an episode called The Chaperone. And if those remember this episode of Seinfeld, it's when George Costanza, who was the assistant traveling secretary, he recommends to Buck Showalter, the then manager of the New York Yankees, who appears in this episode, that all the players were complaining about how hot their polyester Yankee pinstripe uniforms were. And he convinces Buck Showalter that they should convert to cotton uniforms. And the players love it. And then in the episode, I'll just spoil the episode for you. In the end, the uniforms start shrinking. The Yankees do absolutely abysmal on the field. The interesting thing about this episode was that Buck Showalter, this is behind the scenes of it, when he agreed to appear on this episode of Seinfeld, he didn't realize that when he signed he had to sign with and Josh will know about this, he had to sign the Screen Actors Guild, get a guild membership, actors, what's it called? Screen Actors Guild.
You
They
have
have to be
member
part
of
of
the
it.
union. You have to get your union card.
Union card, exactly. But obviously he didn't fill it out properly, and he didn't actually what initially was going to happen, he was going to make 89 cents every time that episode was rerun. But now, and you only realized this recently, every time that episode, The Chaperone Seinfeld, that he appears in gets rerun, he loses $19 in taxes. He's taxed $19 for every time. I will post it on one of our Facebook pages. But yeah, it is hilarious that Buck Showalter loses money every time that episode is rerun. And that's Eric's pop culture reference.
I wonder what Keith Hernandez got.
Well, Keith Hernandez, he appeared in many episodes, and so yeah.
So just to round this segment off, guys, Seinfeld, is it the greatest ever sitcom?
It's a top 10, definitely.
Yeah. JC?
It's in the
top 5. Might go even higher.
Moving on.
Moving on.
We're going to move into the end of the show here, guys. We're running out of time.
I guess you don't. I guess you don't want to know the answer to the trivia question.
Well, I was about to say we need to get into social media, but before we do that, let's find out the answer to Eric's trivia question.
Sorry to ruin your link. All right.
That's okay.
To reiterate the question I asked you guys earlier, which of these three players, active players, hit a home run in their debut in their first at bat on the first pitch? And was it A, Sterling Marte? Was it B, Wilson Contreras, or was it C, Jason Hayward? Now, apparently, Johnny has to go last because he has been doing his homework, allegedly. Let's see if he's studying the wrong thing.
You want me to go, or do you want to go, Dave?
You go.
I'm going to go with Wilson Contreras.
Wilson Contreras.
I'm going to go with Starling Marte.
And are you going to go for Jason Hayward?
Eric, you can see me on the screen. How good was my poker face when Josh said Wilson Contreras? How good was that? That was good, wasn't it? I didn't give anything away because JC, as always, is absolutely right.
Interesting. Okay, that's your final answer?
That's not an answer, by the way.
That is my final. That is the
answer.
I did my research.
Doing whatever Josh says?
I did my research. Go on, put us out of our misery. Tell the world I'm right, Eric.
The answer is actually all of them except for Jason Hayward, because Jason Hayward.
That's not all of them. That's 2 of them.
It's all of them except.
It's just so.
Wait, does that mean
It's
I'm
all of them
right?
except for Jason Hayward, who hit a home run in his debut on the 3rd pitch. Oh, there we go. First at bat,
Yep.
3rd pitch.
So we were.
Oh, Wilson
we were
Contreras
right.
is-
The question was, who was the last guy to do it?
No, it wasn't. I said which of these 3 players.
Yeah, that is the way he framed it. So we all got it. It's
So
good.
everyone got it because it was
Everyone's a
Wilson. It
winner.
was Starling Marte and it was Wilson Contreras, and
Everyone's a winner, baby.
And winner,
Baby.
winner, chicken dinner. There you go. Moving on.
So even when I know the answer, I'm not 100% right. Is basically
No,
what
you're
telling
right,
me what.
but you know, you could have said
You have to
both.
share the glory, Goldie. It's something that you are unaccustomed to.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Thanks, guys. We need another quick fantasy mention. Of course, we've got our fantasy pod as well. I've got the great pleasure of having the company of James Holden, fantasy baseball legend, proper fantasy baseball legend, unlike JC. And that is, of course, behind home plate at BHP Pod. And it's all part of the same Ted Fred stable. And we will be doing our next episode, our sixth of the season. That'll be coming out this week, so do look out for that at BHP Pod. We've got other shows as part of the stable. We've got the Slapshot Smack Talk at Slapshot Talk. Would you believe it? With the NHL legend, the face and voice of NHL here in the UK, Mr. Eric Jansen. Loving that. I'm looking forward to being invited on because, of course, I'm a former presenter of Channel 5's NHL coverage, but yet to get my invite. Anytime NBA show, also at Anytime NBA show. I know nothing about NBA, so they won't be inviting me onto that one, but that's an absolute cracker. Do check it out. Also, make sure you tune in to the Nat Coon Show with great guests lined up, including BBC's NFL legend Jay Bell, Ben Isaacs, college experts, a plethora of ESPN US analysis. You see, a word like plethora, you'd never hear that.
Plethora.
Or even plethora. Did I say plethora? I did. See, it's a word.
Is that like an aluminium thing?
Plethora.
No?
That's the word I was looking for. You see, that's why we don't use words like that. But you use them on the Nat Coon Show. That's why you should join that with the NFL legends that are Jay Bell and Ben Isaacs and others. Available on all good podcasters or even podcatchers. At the NC Show is the strap line, and a special thanks also. And I know this is what you wanted to do, Eric, to the at 3 Men 2 Balls for spreading the word in the Republic of Ireland about us. Tell us more.
Just a bunch of guys, Irish, of course, and then they're in Dublin, and they love our show, and they've been sharing and liking and subscribing, as should other people.
Fantastic stuff. Fantastic. And I loved your Irish accent there, by the way. Just
To be
for a
sure.
moment.
Yeah, that was really
You
spot
just-
on. I couldn't tell if that was Belfast or if that was, Dublin.
Yeah, but he quit on it, didn't he? He started it, but he quit on
Yeah.
it. There was no
He knew it
confidence
was
in what
bad.
to do.
It's a good point, Johnny.
But I'm loving that. At 3 Men 2 Balls. What a great
Goldie,
strap line.
when you were in the movie Sheena, were you did you commit or did you also quit?
But you were a movie critic. You should at least know the movie's full title. It was Sheena, Queen of the Jungle.
I
Yes,
know the
indeed.
full title. I was
Absolutely.
shorthanding for us.
You were
my friend.
shorthanding. Of course, as we all know, my film debut in the epic movie. I was edited out, and it was described by Time Out magazine as, and I quote, the worst film in cinematography history. So, wasn't good enough for the worst film ever made. Thank you very much. That is my career, ladies and gentlemen.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's a completely true story, Dave. I'll tell you at another
Wow.
time. At Johnny and Josh is our strap line. Do get in touch. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and now YouTube. And be one of the first 100 you're in with a chance of a super duper prize, which of course is courtesy of the legend that is JC. Guys, as always, what a pleasure. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you, Goldie. We love you.
Could we, when I do this, could we just try and invert a certain amount of enthusiasm in your response? Because there's always a flat line.
Thank you so much, Johnny.
Thank you, Dave. That's
This
more
has
like
been
it.
such a
Golly
great,
gee
great,
whiz,
great
Goldie.
afternoon.
It's been
This
an
is
honor
fun.
serving with you.
Thank you, Eric. That's it from us.
Thank you
for
for your
listening
service, Goldie.
to the Johnny and Josh Show. We look forward to having your company same time next week. Till then, take care.